Jason Davis did quite well for himself.
Indeed.
And as I was saying earlier, he was the star of the Lincoln dinner for the Republicans, the main fundraiser.
He was.
And Doran, of course, had that little thing with Neil Bortz, with tongue-in-cheek. Persis looks real strong going into the general election. Can Jason Davis do it again, realistically?
Well, I think he absolutely could, because he's the Republican choice. I mean, for the Republicans, they should do what the Democrats always do, vote in lockstep.
Stan, and very quickly.
I think during the primary you didn't see Jason talking very much about the substance of the issues.
Couldn't get too worried
because, exactly, first of all, he couldn't get access very much in the press, and secondly, and more importantly, because of the way the primary turned out, the Democrats were busy gutting one another, and that not only meant he didn't have to get out there in front, but beyond that, it meant that the whole focus of the race was on these two people slinging mud at one another as fast as ever they could. And the proper role for Jason in a contest like that is to be above the fray and say, I want to talk about the issues whenever my opponents are ready to do so. Now we're going into the general.
What is his general? What is
yes.
What is his? What are his chances realistically?
Yeah, well, I think when people hear Jason's views, they will realize that as a result of whatever sort of process may have taken place, the primary spit out on the Republican side a really strong candidate, a really good, well-informed candidate who has the interests of the county at heart. And I think a lot of people will see that and vote for Jason Davis rather than, as Sally said, a continuation of the tax and spend mentality which has dominated the land for decades. A
yes and no question, Sally. Is Jason Davis a stronger opponent for Carl Persis than Deb Denny's would be against Jim Hathaway in Southeast Volusia?
Well, Deb has the political experience.
Yes or no?
Yes.
She would be stronger than Jason Davis.
Oh, to be chair? I'm sorry.
No, not to be chair. I'm talking about the two races. Let me ask again.
Please.
Okay. Yes or no answer. Is Jason Davis versus Carl Persis, Republican versus Democrat, he's not the incumbent, but he might as well be, versus Republican Deb Denny's, and Deb Denny's in the Southeast Volusia District 3 seat versus the Democrat Jim Hathaway, who did win the primary with a second Democrat, Justin Kennedy, in that race, and he still prevailed. So, realistically, is it more likely to see Deb Denny's beat Jim Hathaway, or is it more likely to see Justin Davis beat Carl Persis? Which one?
That's a terrible question.
Which one?
I don't know.
Stan?
If I had to toss a coin, I'd say they're both going to win.
Well,
That's why I couldn't answer.
I think I would
I think the coin will land on its edge.
I think I have a better answer than that. I think it all depends on what the voter mood is on election day with the presidential race.
Isn't that the case in every election?
Yeah.
Right, but this one in particular with Obama, do we want 4 more years of Barack Obama, or do we want to take a chance on Mitt Romney?
Well, sure,
which brings
candidates have coattails. Yeah.
Which brings us to our third and final segment, thank God. The presidential election in November. We're done with the locals. We're not going to get into state and that kind of thing.
We can do that another time.
Let's talk about Mitt Romney and his new running mate, Paul Ryan, versus Barack Obama and the old warhorse, Joe Biden. At the beginning, we all thought that maybe Biden might be replaced by Hillary Clinton.
But I still think it's not outside the realm of possibility.
Everybody's saying, no.
It's looking now like the media is waiting to get something on the young Republican VP candidate.
I think they're waiting.
Well, they're looking for something to trip him up with.
If there was something there, they would have found it by now.
How much can you get on Joe Biden? And you haven't already beaten him up on over the years.
Well, Joe Biden gives you everything you need on a daily basis, even if you haven't bothered to do any research.
Absolutely. The guy. Do you know that the White House has not released any transcripts of Joe Biden for 2 months because they just can't. He is so...
They pulled him off the campaign trail. I know Joe Biden slightly from when I was in Washington. He's a nice fellow. He's a good man.
Let's get full disclosure to our audience here that I'm dealing with 2 hardcore Republicans to my left and to my right. They must both be to my right.
That is true. But I think we try to discuss all the issues fairly. I look at it from the conservative side. I can't help that. Even though I was born in Minnesota, I've always been a conservative person.
Let me ask you about a different topic, and we'll end it with this. And I'm going to take a different slant, and I know I'll probably get beat up on it. But
we don't care.
It is my belief that when you're the commander-in-chief, you call the operation. Yes, your Navy SEALs go in and do the job. But let's face it, Barack Obama pulled the switch and they got the job done. Now, he didn't go in there and get it. He didn't go in there and get bin Laden. But, and I also, when I wrote about this, I also gave equal credit to George W. Bush, because I don't think one could have handed off without the help of the other. And this is a network in place. You know, but I think that, I think you got to give Obama the credit for being the commander-in-chief of the operation. No, he didn't go in there and get him. Well, and maybe it could have been any president. The bottom line is this president.
Look, Henry, when a situation like that takes place, for example, the failed raid on the hostages.
Remember Carter, he took a beating on that.
Jimmy Carter was commander-in-chief. He got pounded about the head and shoulders. In part, that was justified because Carter maintained or tried to maintain tactical control himself over much of the operation. It isn't a question of being weak or not, he simply didn't know how to do that. And he didn't leave enough of the control in the hands of the commanders in the field. That's beside the point. When it fell apart, Carter took the blame. He couldn't avoid the blame. There was nothing else to do but stand up and take it. Now, in Obama's case, you're quite right. He didn't do the job. It was the intelligence community that found the information. It was the courage and capacity of our SEALs who went in and took out the compound and took out Obama and anybody else who got in their way, which is exactly the way they're supposed to operate. But Obama was president, Obama was commander-in-chief, Obama made the decision, and Obama would have taken the flak had it failed.
Right.
Therefore,
right. That's all I'm trying to say.
That Obama gets a great deal of the credit for being in charge when it happened.
And let's face it, this thing could have easily been bungled. Maybe it could have been a firefight and 3 or 4 SEALs could have been killed.
Or he might not have been there.
You're talking about taking responsibility. What he did afterwards is far worse than even Carter did. He told the entire world, we got bin Laden today. He removed all chance that they would use the intelligence data gathered in Osama's compound that could be used and useful. They probably burned a whole bunch of human intelligence. It was a terrible thing to do.
Well, that goes without saying.
Yeah, you're going to have that.
His speech announcing the thing was I. He should have given
but
more.
He should have just
he should have given more credit to the intelligence community, and then the leaks that have taken place afterward about the sources and methods involved are likely to get this one Pakistani doctor killed, or at least imprisoned for the rest of his life, and will no doubt burn other sources.
And is he going to take responsibility for that? That's what I want to know.
No, he certainly should. He is commander-in-chief across the board.
So as we're in our third segment now, talking about the presidential election, the one thing that comes to mind to me, and I know Republicans will think otherwise, but remember, not every conservative is a Republican, is that I think when you're the commander-in-chief, you take credit for the operation that's successful. And taking out bin Laden, I don't care who was president, it got done. And it was swift, and bin Laden was removed from the face of the earth. Buried at sea, in the Islamic tradition, and that was it. That's the end of it. Now, the aftermath of the president gloating or whatever, if that's the perception, well, then the voters will handle that in November. But what about the other parts of the presidency? I mean, what's the big issue in this election, Stan?
Well, I think the big issue in the election is the debt and the economy and jobs. All of these things are melded together because each impacts the other. And I think what we have is a president whose policies have taken a bad situation, made it much, much worse, and have no prospect of ever making it better. In fact, if we continue his policies, I think the economy and the country will collapse. What we need is a rescue, similar to the one that Mitt Romney made with the Olympics. We need somebody who knows something about business and who is prepared, on the one hand, to keep business focused in the right direction, on the other hand, give them wide enough parameters in which to operate so that the private sector can once again save and grow this country, as it always has in the past, and as it will now if we give it the chance.
Now, Sally, I know that you were very adamant that you didn't feel, you thought that Obama got most of too much credit in the capture and
I don't think he got it. I think he took it.
Okay.
He said, I'm the one that did all this stuff. Yeah, he gave the order. That was good. That was good. But what happened afterwards is still the bone of contention for me. he took the credit, that was fine, but he needs to take the responsibility for all the intelligence leaks, for making an announcement the day after, all the tactics and things that the SEALs did.
Again, we can go over that all day long, but what about what Stan's saying about the economy and who's best to take it over? I mean, it's been an abysmal 4 years.
Well, that's because we have someone who's never been in business and has no clue how to run a simple little business. I ran a business for 14 years. That's kind of a miracle that a small business makes it past the first 5 years. But you can't practice on the economy from the White House. You have to know things to do, and you will never, ever, ever be able to spend your way out of the economy that we've got today.
Can it get worse?
Absolutely, it can, Henry.
Where does it go from here?
Look, we have a man in office who was trained to be a professional outside agitator, whose entire background, every meaningful relationship in his life prior to his entry into national politics was Marxist to one degree or another. We have a man who has no basis for understanding of the American political and economic systems, who comes to power at exactly that time when those systems are fundamentally challenged, and one expects him to come up with a solution to problems on the scale that we face. Every solution that this man contemplates will only make things worse in our system, because they will be solutions that are meant to apply to socialist or even communist nations.